said, this is John giving you my weekly spoiler review of American Gods. This one's for episode 7 of season 1, A Prayer to Mads Sweeney. I can't believe that there's only one episode left. There's only one episode left of this awesome show. And this episode completely took a lot of weird twists and turns, a lot of back and forth in the past, in the present, as we start off with Mr. Ibis and Anubis. Right away we get some more dong. It's fine. It's dead dong. We have Anubis kind of putting someone back together, getting him ready for his final rest, and he's talking to Mr. Ibis. They're kind of having a little back and forth inside joke between them, saying that there's no more lovers' quarrels, which was pretty funny. It seems like all those lovers' quarrels are what's keeping Mr. Ibis's funeral home in business. So we get a nice sweeping shot of nice Ireland, coastal Ireland. We find out it's in the past, and we get to see young Essie McGowan. And Essie McGowan is a little girl that is talking to her grandmother about the leprechauns. So we could already see, by the title and by the opening scene, we could already see who this episode is going to kind of revolve around. And it's a little surprising because it's not just the obvious in Mads Sweeney, everyone's favorite drunken, brawling leprechaun, but also around Essie McGowan. So Essie McGowan grows up, so to speak, and we find out that it's played by Emily Browning. Guess what? Emily Browning plays another character in the show. So at this point, Laura almost seems as much of a main character as Shadow is. We're seeing the world through her dead eyes as opposed to Shadow's alive eyes. So as young lovers do, Essie McGowan gets mixed up with like a very high-ranking aristocrat son, the son of a high-ranking aristocrat, and instead of, she's kind of a servant, and instead of kind of shaming his family name, he basically denies the whole thing once she sees that she is wearing a brooch or a necklace or something from like the family. It's like a family heirloom. So he doesn't come clean. He doesn't fess up to sleeping with the scullion. But she gets pretty much put on trial for death for being a thief. So in those days, I guess there was kind of a way out of the trip to the gallows, kind of like Game of Thrones with the whole taking the black thing. Instead of death, you could just kind of take the black and go to the wall. But in this case, you could kind of take the servant area, not slave, but servant, and kind of hop on a boat to the Americas and kind of live out a sentence, working for kind of masters over in the Americas. In this case, I believe it was one of the Carolinas. So she doesn't make it too far over until she kind of falls in love with the captain of the ship, where she convinces him to kind of turn around to London, marry her, and start a little life. Well, he has to, he's a working man. He has to go back out on his ship. Well, while he's gone, she takes everything. She takes the silverware, his breeches, you name it, everything's going in Essie McGowan's bag. So all the while on Essie McGowan's journeys, she is a woman of tradition. She is kind of paying homage, leaving out some kind of offering, usually a bowl of milk or a crumb of bread, to the leprechauns to kind of appease their luck. So she is fully embracing being this thief now. She's kind of taken stuff from the local marketplace, and she seems to be very good at it. Flash forward to see Laura. I mean, it goes full frame, like frame to frame, Laura's face to Essie's face. I definitely think that she's either some kind of ancestor or some kind of reincarnation, but I think that Essie and Laura are definitely connected more than just Mads Sweeney, has kind of met up with them both in the past and the present. We're back on my favorite road trip, and we kind of pull over to take a piss. So Mads has a nice little back and forth with some ravens, and then Laura's idea is just to be like, hey, why don't we just cut Salim? We could make it on our own. And much to Mads, frustration, they do release him. At this point, Salim kind of shows his true colors and says, "You are just a terrible creature, Mads. Like, I'm so glad to be done with you." He gets in the car and speeds off. So our trio has become a duo. And going back to Essie being a great thief, Laura walks right up to an ice cream truck and just basically says, hey, I've never stolen a car, I'm gonna steal this one. I just love how Laura is constantly covered in flies. I don't know why I don't know why she's covered in flies. Perhaps she'll die? Oh, I did it! So going back in time to London, Essie is getting too big for her britches again. She's getting too careless, and the key thing is she's not leaving out the offerings for the leprechauns. Well, she goes to grab some kind of nice gossamer-like veil, and she walks right into the authorities, and bam, she's back in the slammer, also back on trial to be hanged. It looks like this time she's not going to get out of it. Well, it's a great time to start tradition again, so she does leave out the offerings, and she wakes up to a cellmate, well, the cell next door, and it turns out, you know, to the audience's eye, because she can't see who she's talking to, but Mads is there, and Mads kind of says that he, you know, used to be a king, so it's very interesting. So Mads is like, he used to be the king of the leprechauns, and he just kind of debunks everything. Like we as, you know, Americans or whatever, just think of leprechauns as tiny little men that are, you know, covered in green and guard a pot of gold. Well, guarding the gold is true in some case, but you know, he's basically said, well, you know, General Mills kind of took over from there. You know, everyone made us like pixies and little things, and then, you know, General Mills just made us lucky from Lucky Charms. But of course, you know, going back to being faithful to the leprechauns, namely the ex-king, Mads, she does find her way out of this sticky situation. Not in the best way. She finds herself into a sticky situation by the warden kind of coming over and letting her out, and, you know, she pays for it. She pays for it. But she is alive. So then we're back on the road trip with our dynamic duo, and we get to see little images of the White Rabbit. So the White Rabbit is, at first I'm like, is this like an Alice in Wonderland reference? But no, I have a feeling this might be a certain holiday that comes every April. Easter, looks like she is really screwing with, or at least monitoring, Mads and Laura driving down the road, but she also jumps right out in the middle of the road. Laura has to take a hard left. We have the entire ice cream truck flip and turn and crash, and Laura goes right through the windshield, which is funny because you could see her like smile like, oh crap, this is ironic. This is how I died, and, you know, I can't die again, but here we go again, right? But as she's going out, it kind of rips her chest open, and the coin flies out of her and kind of rolls on the street. So while we're left with a completely, you know, dead-faced Laura on the ground with her chest split open and an unconscious Mads, we kind of wrap up Essie's backstory. After her death sentence is levied and they just send her across the ocean again to the Carolinas, she winds up falling in love and getting the master to fall in love with her as well. And she has children, she has all these things, so it looks like she finally has made a good enough life for herself where she doesn't have to constantly steal and cheat and everything. She's finally where she wants to be. And then her husband dies. He's an older gentleman, I think they had like 10 good years. And then she just kind of, you know, goes from rags to riches and just takes over the ranch and does a very good job and is surrounded by her children. And it's kind of a cool thing because when it flashes, you know, forward more for Essie when she's older, and she is now the same grandmother that the grandmother was in the beginning. So it's the same actress. I just thought that was pretty cool. So Mads wakes up in the middle of the road, kind of walks over. It seems very happy to see his coin is finally free. He picks it up and then just starts raging and cussing at the, you know, in Leprechaun, at the heavens, or Odin rather, probably. And he's super pissed off, and, you know, he reluctantly puts the coin back into Laura, and Laura just like wakes up immediately and knocks Mads out, you know, because she's just like everywhere. She has like pieces of her chest like around her neck and stuff like that. The makeup was pretty cool looking, but yeah, she doesn't know what happened. She just knows that it appears that Mads is like messing with her chest or something like that. So she gets pretty pissed off. She just kind of gets up, flips the car or the ice cream truck back over, you know, picks up Mads and goes. interesting, we get to see a little bit of a flashback for Laura. And we got to see that it was Mads that kills Robbie and Laura, that he caused this accident for Odin, aka Mr. Wednesday. So Wednesday took on a super nefarious role, and it looks like Mads is completely in Wednesday's pocket. And we get a little bit of a why. It looked like there was some kind of great god war, back in the day, and it looks like Mads kind of opted out, and so he's kind of trying to pay for his past cowardice to go and die for this new war against the new gods with Wednesday. So the last bit of the episode, we get to see the final day of Grandma Essie McGowan, and she's just kind of sitting on the porch. Her kids don't like hearing these kind of stories anymore. They're quite frightening about leprechauns, eating your eyes out and stuff like that. So, she just kind of spends her remaining days sitting on a porch in nice Carolina. And then one night, Mr. Sweeney kind of walks up and professes exactly what he's been doing, and kind of thanks her for bringing him over from Ireland to and England, and he basically tells her that he's been the leprechaun that's been receiving all these gifts from her, and the devotion was very appreciated, and he kind of takes on the role of Anubis and just says, take my hand, and kind of takes her on off camera to the afterlife, what we could assume. The very last scene is just kind of Mr. Ibis kind of chronicling this particular story, which is interesting, closes the book, and that's it. So this episode was it was cool. It was cool, but it was weird, and it was weird placement. This feels like an episode 3, an episode 4, not an episode 7. Usually, when shows the episode before the season finale usually is huge, it's big, it's Battle of the Bastards, it's Hard Home, it's all this crazy stuff. But this particular episode was very, very set up, very back and forth, and also gave us a lot of questions about who's Laura, who's Essie, how are they connected, how is Mads really connected to this individual, this soul, rather than, not just Laura's body or Essie's body, but kind of Laura's soul. So that's very interesting and very head-scratching questions that we're going to be left with for however long until we get season 2. So, episode 8 has a lot to do, has a lot to wrap up for American Gods season 1. I did enjoy the hell out of this episode and enjoy the hell out of the season so far. It's not my favorite episode. I would say things I didn't like. Just the placement of the episode. Like I said, if it was like even episode 5, it would have made more sense to me. I was hoping for kind of more build up with Wednesday and Shadow and stuff, and actually seeing kind of a gathering of all these gods with Chernobog and Mads and all these other gods kind of form together and then kind of march on the big bads at the end. But that's not what we got, so we have a lot riding on episode 8 of season 1, but I'm gonna still give this one a 4.2. Like I said, it was still a great episode. It was shot well. It was the same director that did the last episode, which I enjoy quite a bit. So guys, if you're in the Las Vegas area and you happen to be a Magic the Gathering fan, I will be at GP Vegas this week, hosted by Channel Fireball. Can't wait to see that. I'm gonna see a lot of you YouTube Magic creators there, and if you are just a fan and you play Magic and you're in Las Vegas and you're going to the GP, come by and say hi. So besides that, just look forward for my Fear the Walking Dead episode 3 spoiler review coming out very soon, probably tomorrow. And after that, it's the finale to American Gods. I can't believe it's already here. Only 8 episodes is killing me. I hope that season 2 is a lot bigger. Guys, you could find me at OrzovDone on Twitter. You could find me on the They Said We Said Facebook group and They Said We Said on Instagram. So I will see you guys for the season finale of American Gods. See you next week.